All right, welcome back, everybody. Our current group we have here is Day on Strings with Connor McLaughlin, Maddie Damp, and Brent Bertraw. Pass it off to you guys and go right ahead and show us your game.
All right. Good evening, folks. We're going to be the Chatterbox as we show you our productions. Currently, we'll be having Brent play through the game and such, and Connor and myself, Maddie, will be giving you kind of the rundown as we go through.
Sweet.
That's right.
You want me to go with this one? Okay, I'll start with this. So we started basically the theme, or what we're trying to encapsulate with the game was doing kind of like a hack and slash isometric top-down 2D, focused around kind of like a theatrical performance. So a lot of the characters, like this one, it's kind of like the mentor character. He's actually a light technician, and then the main character is a marionette, and a lot of the characters that we have, some of them are placeholder assets just to help with kind of variety in the enemies and stuff like that. We're planning on filling that out as we move forward, kind of deciding if development will continue afterward, obviously. But for the pieces that we did get in and finalized, a lot of it is themed around the theatrical performance, which Maddie and Connor are both the artists. So if you guys want to touch on kind of the inspiration for that maybe a little bit while I just zoom through this tutorial.
Yeah, no problem. Initially, when we were doing some conceptualizing, we were kind of trying to border between did we want more of a dark or fantasy, more just a dramatical performance, or go the full 9 yards with the theatrics. A couple of the ideas actually for the main character were initially we were thinking of possibly doing kind of this tattered plague doctor. Also kind of just a dressed up kind of suited character. But we eventually at least ending up our main character concepts with a marionette and having at least that idea in thematics that it would go into I guess the middle of the Venn diagram that would be all of the themes while we were still in development.
For sure. Yeah.
Yep. I worked on most of the enemies. This is a placeholder asset, not one of ours. But the past one that you saw, Brent beating up, that was one of mine. While going through concepting, had a few different ideas of like things that would act as things that represent different performers that would work through putting on this show. As part of the narrative would be like there would be like a crowd and stands as like part of like the backdrop, and so a lot of the enemies have masks on their faces. And what you saw Brent fight in the first level was a basic cannon fodder type enemy, really slow. They have the simplest mask of the ones that we made. They have just a dot in the face, and then other ones are going to have, based off of what kind of enemy they have, the tragedy mask, humor mask, or comedy mask, and use those to help the player differentiate between those in combat very quickly.
Yeah, as you probably made a guess, a lot of the masks are just based around the concept of theater masks. So we thought it'd be a nice motif to give both a gauge of complexity and importance based on mask use. Though it's a little bit hard to see, as in the current development, our marionette actually has 4 different masks. Though it wasn't able to be within the stretch goals currently for the game, we were initially thinking of trying to have a bigger dialogue system. While that isn't in this one, hopefully in future be able to expand upon it.
So just
we got
touching
the
on,
bare bones.
just touching on some of the mechanics that we're showing so far. The main focus for this kind of iteration through IGS was to get really good feeling combat. Basically, the premise of the game, which this is kind of just like demo levels as we move through these, but the premise of the game is that through each performance, you go against different performers, which are kind of the boss fights that we'll see a little bit, and these smaller enemies, and then you consistently will grow with abilities and unlockables and things like that. For right now, it's just set combat. We really wanted to work on the fluidity of it, and overall making the enemies enjoyable to fight. So just kind of showing some of those. We have our block, four basic attacks, and then that the big swirl, and then we also have a heavy attack, and there's a parry as well. So if you block right on time, you'll end up parrying, which will stun lock multiple enemies and actually have that burst effect that you might have caught a little bit earlier. So in this next level, I'll try to show most of those. So with some of the AI, they have different tendencies. So this is one of our boss fights. With these ones, you'll see they're very aggressive. And for Foxtrot, which is this character here, made her a little bit slower, but very strong with the attacks, and will actually throw multiple. But it's very easy to target, and so these two kind of smaller enemies kind of put that pressure on you so that you can't just focus on the one. So there was the parry. I can show the heavy attack here, which will knock back multiple. The combo. Some enemies will actually have hyper armor, is what we call it. Some games use that term. So they can actually swing through certain attacks. I believe Foxtrot has it too, if I show it here. Yeah. Some of them can be interrupted if you hit your full combo. I'll try to get a parry here. Which apparently is missing me. Let's try it out.
This is her performance, Brent. She's not gonna do what you want.
Yeah.
Much
So
like
defeat that one.
yeah.
And then these characters, each one, these placeholders were really for me, since I was the solo programmer, to kind of get an idea of how I should make the enemies and kind of craft these different types and make them feel unique. So these ones are really weak in terms of their damage output and also their health, but they're really fast, and obviously they have a huge dodge range, so they'll actually, it almost feels like they slide right to you. But they're pretty easy to defeat once you play through like a million times, as like I have. So, but through some playtesting and stuff, we found that these characters are actually, you got to learn them a few times through before you actually get through. And we got this one's got a lot, so let's see if I can beat it on my first try.
Let's see. What else can I go over?
We can talk about how nicely fitted the Unity assets are to what we had planned anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That is major props to Brent, honestly. He's been a very lovely teammate to work with.
Indeed. Yeah, he's done plenty of good work with getting good placeholders, which help him keep playing forward with code, but also helps us kind of have a good framework of how to like work our animations. Like I did the death animations for the death animations and swing animations for the basic enemies with the basic masks, and a lot of the placeholders had really good animations that I could use to kind of help guide that process.
Yes. So, some people might think it's a bit odd to be commenting on that, but a lot of times what can sometimes drag people down in any project, honestly, is the concept of, oh, I really need this, I need this artwork, or if I need this code block to be able to proceed further with the work. But a lot of time, if that's constantly what's blocking up the workflow, nobody really benefits from it. So it's a nice lesson to learn, and something that, at the very least, if I don't get to work with these guys further on, it's something to keep in mind to help other teammates in the process.
Definitely, I think it was one of the first takeaways from my first time doing one of these IGS games, was making sure that we get things to work off of instead of having to wait on each other. And I think that's how one of our is that we got so far with this one in our short time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was just the second boss that we threw in, kind of just to show off the flexibility of our enemies and what can be accomplished with kind of the foundation that we laid out. And like Connor and Maddie were saying, kind of using those placeholders as a programmer made it pretty easy to kind of visualize how to make the system that they run on, and implementing animations and figuring out hitboxes and kind of tweaking all those little values. So that was a huge piece for me to kind of focus on. Is just continue to work while they take their time. Obviously, art takes a lot of time to do right and to do well. And so I was able to kind of use these placeholder assets to give them the foundation of, these are the things that are possible. So just kind of run with it, which is what we were looking to do for sure. And then that's really the end of the demo. There's one extra level behind the mentor here, which I've never beat. So I'll give it one shot, and we'll see if we can get through it. But
I still can't believe you put this in here.
To this day, I've never beat it. I had a play tester play the single boss fight, one of my buddies, and he played for probably an hour and 20 minutes, hour 30, and he was very upset that he could not defeat the first boss. So I've never had anybody actually get to this point, except for me. So obviously some balancing issues, but yeah, we'll play one time through, see if I can win it for the first time ever.
I'll be excited to see if when people are playing, if they are able to devise different strategies.
Yeah, for sure. I know,
especially as we start getting abilities in. I think seeing what people, if we go for the multiple choice route, like Hades type games do with their boon abilities, I'd be very interested to see what kind of builds people try and go for.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Oh.
Oh yeah. The enemies are also very brutal after you die, and we'll just wail on you for now.
Yeah. But that stays on strings. So that's what we had by the end of IGS, and hope everybody enjoyed it. Whoever's watching. I guess we could do questions now if there is any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe
I might ask, how and where did you get this fantastic intro song?
Oh, the intro song I created at 3 a.m. Before IGS. I was playing around with FL Studio and threw it in there because we needed it, and it's been in here for the entirety of the development process. So I've heard the song a multitude of times.
All right, we got a bunch of questions coming in.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Oh.
All right. Joy-Con Jesus asks, what inspired the character art design?
I'll leave that to Maddie and Connor.
Yeah. You can go over your set first.
Yeah. So I believe primarily
the music stopped.
You're good. I think primarily for the main character, having though we didn't get to do too much story elements, having a marionette kind of intrinsically is tied into theatrical design and such, and almost is kind of like a catalyst, a blank slate, if you will, going into this world. Which one of the ideas for the plot going into it was you were a fighter that's lost something, and you're trying to get through the entirety of the performances to find the one thing that you've forgotten. So having that, along with having a marionette that has mass, makes for a lot of good challenges of expressing different details and expressions and such, because then you rely on a lot more expressive things like the portraits that I did. A lot of them are kind of fuming with smoke for anger, kind of twiddling the quote-unquote thumbs for kind of a passive, and kind of things like that. And having that sort of design just makes it fun at the end of the day. I can't say that it really drew on anything specifically for inspiration outside of just the existence of mannequins itself.
All right, we got another question from Renketsu Zero. Are you guys planning on adding any other characters?
Absolutely. This is going to be a narrative game at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get to showcase too many of them just because of time constraints and such. The ideal is that we'll have at the very
Right.
minimum, probably like 5 or 6 bosses that you'll be able to interact with in your quote-unquote downtime in the game, along with the wraith itself that inhabits within you. Possibly more depending on where the plot takes form, of course. Outside of the BBEG, or Big Bad Evil Boss.
I just want to say that in terms of characters, the tutorial person really reminds me of like Phineas and Ferb style art.
You know,
like a Doofenshmirtz type person.
I kind of see it.
Yeah, the mentor is definitely meant to be a very zany character. Though we didn't get to display it. His whole shtick is he's a collector of orbs and is absolutely fascinated by them. And yeah.
I suppose my question kind of flows into that well. Is that like, if you could add voice acting, would you? And then follow-up question would be like, what would the character sound like?
That's a good
Oh God, you want us to do it?
I mean,
mimic the
character. My D&D career has prepared me for this.
We've trained for this.
If I oh god, I don't think I could really do just off the top of my head think of like voice claims for the characters. I would almost.
We've never really discussed it, to be honest.
Yeah. No.
I'd be down to do it, of course.
So, like, I think like off the top of my head for the main character, they would almost have like Theo, do you know Ina? Oh god, like the divided blue and yellow girl that appears in very weird videos.
The very cubic, like almost like Picasso-esque looking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Similar to that scheme, the marionette would probably have 4 different voices for the 4 different masks that they possess. What those would probably be a lot of like their neutral one would probably be like, "Ah, yes, here you are. Come at me." Their anger being a lot more of like, I will find you and I will kill you. Their sad one being more of, maybe let's not do that. And then kind of confused more of like, it's like, well, maybe, no, let's not do that. Let's see.
Those are pretty good, Maddie.
Yeah,
you might,
awesome.
you might pay you to do some voice acting.
Actually, I didn't even expect. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we never discussed it, but I think it would be, we did talk about dialogue systems. We talked about narrative a lot. Unfortunately, we weren't able to really get it in just because of the time constraints and what we wanted to focus on and prioritize getting that game loop. But I think it definitely would add a lot. Voice acting can do a lot for definitely narrative pieces and showing characters and kind of portraying those characters the way that we intended. So yes, I think yes would be the answer for the first one, and then Maddie would do the voices for sure.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to make a joke. I'll probably need to get a standing mic if I'm going to do that. I'm not actually sure how clear I got to when doing them.
All right. So we got one final question from Reynolds A69. What is the future for this game? Because they loved it and they want to see it continue.
Huh.
Well, that's very lovely to hear. But personal hopes, I think for most of us, that try and work on this more over the summer. I personally would like to continue working with Maddie as part of their IGS2 and as part of my senior thesis, if possible. I'd like to get this as far as I could push it. Honestly, I want to try and learn some more apt middleware for like dialogue writing systems. Like I know there's Twine and I think Inked or something along those lines. I want to try and learn this summer for helping push that part of the game.
All right.
Yeah, by a roadmap standpoint, it would probably just be one we would get sprites and such and their animations down. Maybe over the summer we'll be able to work on that a little bit more. I'll have to see. After that, it would probably be abilities, and then that jump would then be getting the dialogue and story together. And from there, we would probably just have to see, honestly. Apparently, voice acting, if people would like it.
Who knows? Maybe we'll need a Kickstarter for this and put that as a stretch goal.
Do a little like simple animatic with them.
Oh, absolutely.
Now I really need to invest in Clip Studio EXE.
Same.
Don't you already own it?
No, I only have the Pro.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
We'll both have to ante up.
All right. Right before you guys go, I just want to hype up Maddie a little bit, just because Maddie did create all of the original characters for LTUX. If you want to go meet them over on Twitter at LTU Expo. They're super awesome. She created everything from their art all the way through their bios and everything. So
they
have been a little bit.
Go Maddie! Heck yeah! That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun time. I hope all of you enjoy the Cloud Circuit. Hopefully they'll be making a appearance in future expos, and who knows, you might get a new one next year.
All right, guys, that was an awesome game. I think the audience loved it even more. I will see you guys later.
Yeah,
Okay,
see ya.
sounds good.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hosting.